to Fanny Chat, the show where we get so far deep, deep, deep within our vaginas that we wonder whether we will ever return to society ever again. So, this episode, I'm recording to you from my van, and I'm actually sitting in my van because Ali has taken the children just to go find a lollipop in a shop. So it's me and the dog and the cat. We're in an olive grove and we're just actually outside Marrakesh because we are making our way back to the north in order to basically extend our stay in Morocco. So, yeah, that's where I am recording from today. You might hear the dog, you might hear the cat, and you might even hear the odd chicken. But it is not the weather that you would expect in Morocco today. So I'm very much snuggled in socks and a jumper. So this episode today is all about the fact that we talk a lot about wanting community. And I keep hearing this. It's like women, mothers, a lot of women that have been in my periphery, in my world, will always say, I just want some kind of community. Or where is the village? Like we hear that a lot. Where is the village? And we're all saying that in isolation. That is what I witness. And I've been sitting with this for many, many years because of my own experiences, but particularly so now as I'm in the van and I'm consciously looking for where is the community going to be for me and my family in years to come. So I just feel like this whole I want community, I want a village. I don't actually think that that's true. I don't think that women are actually sitting with that truthfully. I think we say we want community. I think we say that we like the idea of community, but real community, well, I don't think that's what most women actually want. And that's because I think real community, that's uncomfortable. Performative community, easy, but real community, no. I think that is deeply uncomfortable for women in general. And I'm going to talk about why and the ins and outs of this. So, this is not the aesthetic that I'm talking about. This perfectly curated group chat. It's not we all get along and we sip our chai lattes after the school run. I'm talking about real community because real community actually asks something of you and it asks you to go first. And that's what's uncomfortable. And see, what I see again and again is women saying, I really want those conversations. I want to be seen for who I am. I want to be acknowledged. They might not necessarily know that that's what they want, or they might not necessarily say that that's what they want, or they might, but they really do want these deeper conversations. But they just stay safe. They stay in the safe ones, like talking about work, talking about their children, talking about their holidays, talking about their renovations. And, maybe they talk about weeing themselves a little bit if that's, in it for the bants, but not in it for the seriousness of what actually is happening there. And you know that I take that quite seriously. So the one thing that we're not saying, or the things that we're not saying really, is I don't know if I actually enjoy my life, or I feel disconnected from my partner, or sex actually really hurts, or weeing myself is becoming a real problem, or I feel resentful, or I feel bored, or I feel nothing sometimes. And it's not because these women that we're talking about, it's not because we're not talking about this because we're, we're shallow, or no, we're not talking about it because no one is willing to rupture the script. No one is willing to rupture, because to have those conversations is very, very different. Very, very different to what you're doing in half term. So I'm going to share an example from my real life recently, which is maybe why it's coming up, but it comes up a lot for me anyway. So we're in the van, and it's very rare that I meet other people that I would have more than a hey conversation with. Oh, hi, how are you? Oh, in Arabic, salam. That's it. That's as far as it goes. And there's something quite joyful about that for me, having a break from a very, very intense community, which is where we were. But then, sometimes you meet people where you share from a different level. And when you do that, it can make people uncomfortable. So I met some women in the van, I shared from a deeper, less surface level space, as I actually do, obviously, quite often. And it makes people obviously uncomfortable. I say obviously it shouldn't be this way, but it does. And then I blame myself because it's obviously me, it's not you. And then that's when people always say, like, oh, what have you, what did you do? What have I done? Women will say to me, what have I done? Why has that happened to me? Why does this always happen to me? No, you have done nothing. Okay. You've just held a mirror. You've made them uncomfortable. It's nothing to do with you. And that acknowledgement, simply that acknowledgement that it's their projection is the one thing that saves me repeatedly and has saved me over the years. That's not to say that I haven't done a lot of work on who I am as a woman. That's not to say I haven't done a lot of work on my mother wounding, on my sister wounding, not as in my sister, as in I have a sister, I do not, as in sisters of being friends with women. They are my sisters. Where has that been a challenge over the years? I have done a lot of that work. I don't guide through my life being like, oh, obviously, I'm not the problem. I understand what I trigger in other people. I understand my triggers and I understand when it becomes a projection. So I am able to hold it. I can hold it, right? So these women that we met, I went deeper and then they just left. They just left in their vans one morning suddenly. They literally had followed us to another location. The children were playing, like the children loved playing with these other children. They were having a lovely time. We woke up in the morning thinking that there was going to be the day together. We talked about like hiring a surfboard. They'd just driven essentially like a good hour and a half to 2 hours the day before, late in the afternoon. It was first thing in the morning the next day. I could see and I could feel the energy of these women the day before, feeling more and more uncomfortable, feeling more and more uneasy. I could feel that coming. We'd gone out for a meal. I could feel the challenge that was coming up. I could feel it. And I don't know if this is why they left, but my spidey senses are normally right. And we understand and can feel the energy. And they left. That morning they left. One of them came to say goodbye. The other one didn't come and say a proper goodbye. Haven't heard from them obviously since. And why? Because they were unable to hold real life. They were unable to hold it. And that's really difficult because they're living in a van and they're living this life, right? And yet at the same time, there's an avoidance. So the avoidance for me in that is say why you're uncomfortable. Have the conversation of, oh, that's triggered that in me. That's triggered that in me. And I'm going to have to sit with that. That's difficult because now our children are entangled in that. And what happened was that rather than facing any of it, rather than being like, oh, Naomi's clearly said some shit that I have felt triggered by. Yes, of course. If you're going to talk to me about children in a van, I'm going to talk to you about children in the system. And I'm going to talk about it from the perspective of acknowledging what it actually takes to take children out of the system. I was a primary teacher, so that can sometimes be uncomfortable. I felt very uncomfortable in a couple of conversations, and I made it abundantly clear that I found that disrespectful to women in general. I am that person that will call it. And maybe I haven't socialized in a while properly, and that was too deep, too quick. But then again, I'm not going to put the blame back on me. That was the conversation that played out. And so then the other thing that happened was that one of my children was having and expressing their emotions to their fullest, which in many respects should be acknowledged that means that she felt safe within that environment, but at the same time was very triggering for the children that they had who were essentially quite perfectly behaved versus this expression of anger that was existing, which then expressed itself in shame. She became shameful and then was overcompensating for the shame through being overly loud, perhaps some might say, when we were at the restaurant. So then that all became a lot for anyone to hold. And of course, they had only met us like 2 days before. Welcome to us. And so what I found was that's cool. Like, obviously, if I was in that situation and I was feeling triggered and I was feeling challenged by the interaction, then I would just say politely and kindly, do you know what? Let's let the children play. I'm going to go and slunk off and do something for myself. And then the partner who isn't being triggered can hold it so that the children can continue playing and having that community for a little bit longer. Or you leave it in a way that feels open and resonant, not I'm going now, bye, and then leaving my children destroyed. So my son was destroyed because he hadn't had any prep for them leaving. It wasn't, they're going to be leaving tomorrow. It was, we're waking up today and we're going to have a full day of playing. And what happened was that he was left and I had to pick up his pieces. And that then becomes and triggers the woman's innate fire of, well, you've now upset my child. And this happens all the fucking time in real world situations. The children are left with, hey, we used to socialize with X and Z all the time. What happened there? It's so confusing for them. And it was so confusing for me growing up. My mum did the same thing. Friends, community, gone. Oh, we don't see that family anymore. Literally, I was told several times, do not go around and play with X. We do not play with them anymore. Oh, why? No whys, no understanding, avoidant. So do we want community? I don't know. Like, do we? I don't know. This is what I'm really sitting with. So I spoke to Sophia in one of our episodes about Sophia. And on paper, Sophia had everything. Yeah, she was not alone in the way she thinks of loneliness. She had her friends. She had full conversations. She had a full life. And she still felt alone. And so the easy answer is, well, she just hasn't found the right people yet. Yep, they're just not her people, you know? And that's a bit like with this situation in the van. It's like, oh, well, they're just not your people. Well, one of those women could have very much been my people. She had the same views. She liked the holistic health kind of vibe. Like, she could have been, but it was just not held in its entirety. So like Sophia, it's like, okay, so she hasn't found her people, but I don't think that's it. I think Sophia is surrounded by people and women who are just like her, all waiting, all sensing that there's more, all slightly dissatisfied, probably not willing to say it to themselves, maybe not willing to say it in the group, and or just keeping the conversation the same because no one wants to be the one that breaks it. Because, hey, what happens when that happens? What happens when the person says the things that we don't want to hear, even though we know we want to go into that conversation and we want to have that conversation? It breaks it. It's no longer what it is anymore. And people don't want that. So this is what I'm sitting with. I'm like, and as I maintain, I'm literally the someone who is moving across countries to find that community, and sitting with her, maybe the community was always or will always be in the place that I am if I'm willing to consistently show up to the conversations that I want to have and sit in that uncomfortable truth that some people just will not be able to hold those conversations that you want to have. And I always maintain that I've struggled with this. And a friend of mine who's much older than me, her viewpoint to me years ago when I was sitting in it was, some people, you have friends for this purpose, and some people, well, then you have friends like for this purpose, and then you have the surface level friends, and it's like and I always sat with that and like, I don't know if I have the time. I don't know if I have the time to keep in touch with somebody where that's surface level conversation anymore. I don't know if I do. The world is on fire. That's where I'm at. But I get how other people can have that. So then the other thing I've done is like, I've literally sat and I've literally run women's circles. In those women's circles, some of those women met and then went off and were friends. And I'd be sitting there like, I literally created these circles for friendship. And it's amazing that they've gone off and created this beautiful friendship. And I still feel like I'm on the outside. It's like so challenging. And I've met women where I thought, this is it. It clicks. I get it. Okay. And then I still feel like something's missing. And so if I'm just really honest, there were just moments where I didn't go there either with those people. Fear of being too much, fear of being seen in who I truly am, kept it on the surface, stayed slightly on the outside where I was probably judged or not judged, and I judge other people. I've sat there and thought, they don't really see me. I don't really see you. And it's easier that way because being seen, well, that's just, challenging. And it's not about finding the right people. It's about risking being known. And that's something that we all really struggle with. So we say we want honesty, right? Most women will say, I just want honesty. I just want honesty within our relationships, with our partners, with our friends. But honesty doesn't change the dynamic. Honesty just makes things like awkward. Honesty might not get the response that you want, and honesty might not be met. And then what? And then what? If you're honest and it's not met, then what? Well, now you are exposed and you said the one thing that no one wanted to be said. You said it. So that's like when I was with those women, right? I said the shit. They became vulnerable. I was vulnerable. No one wants to deal with that. And that's tricky. So it's just easy to stay in the comfort zone. Oh, I'm good. How are you? I'm good. So good to see you. Oh my God, babe. I'm so good. So good. You were just having a fucking meltdown this morning about how fucking shit life was. I'm so good. Oh my God, so good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. How have you been? Oh, you're good? I'm good. It's like, oh yeah, just busy. Busy. Yeah, you know how it is. Just, trying to juggle it all, Oh yeah, no, yeah, just same old. The night before you were having a meltdown because you literally couldn't deal with a child refusing to eat one more meal. It's like, I'm not good. I'm actually not good, but I'm going to meet this with, I'm good and she's good and we remain there and we're all good. Do you want to go for coffee? Oh my God, we should totally go for coffee. We have the coffee after the school run. Yeah, I've got half an hour or I've got an hour. I don't have a meeting till 10. Oh my God, amazing. Should we just do that? Should we go for a coffee? Because I haven't seen you in a while. I mean, we're like ships in the night at this school run. Yeah, amazing. Okay, so we're going to go and then we're going to go have the coffee and then we're just going to talk about, so what are you doing for half term? Oh yeah, really? Oh, I didn't know that was on. Oh, I must look into that. Oh yeah, we should get together and do that. Shame about the weather though, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, the weather's been a bit shit. Rained all January. That's it. You leave and you go back to life. Like, am I not speaking the truth of what happens? So when the women say, where is the community? I want to challenge that gently. I'm gently challenging that because I don't think it's a location problem. I think it's a courage problem. Like, social media is another good example of this. It's so shallow. Instagram is the most shallow place I think that I find myself on the internet. And I struggle with it so much, have consistently struggled with it. I've been literally harassed on it. With the police doing nothing about it. I have tried to leave it. I've explained that I'm leaving it because of the harassment case and there was no legal backing for me. Then I was like thinking, okay, so I'm going to find people off it. And I did for a while, but then I needed to go back online in order to be in a van. And then online was, wow, everybody's still sitting on Instagram. I'm like, hey, have you been on Substack? What Substack? Oh, okay. Shit. Like, okay, so I'm just gonna have my website and I'm gonna like enhance the SEO. Been doing that. Does that help? A little bit. Takes months. It's all months work. Okay, but I'm used to the metrics of social media because it's quick and it's performative. And so I can go on there and I can post something and people will like it. 30 likes, amazing. 30 people exist. Oh, thank fuck. They won't buy anything necessarily. They won't engage any further than just seeing the photo. They probably didn't even read the caption, but they showed up for a second and my body went, oh, thank fuck. Somebody exists out there. And so I've been in this cycle 4 years. When I ran a handmade business, I would lie in bed with my twin babies, my son toddling around. I post a picture of a pair I made at 1 a.m. Be like, oh my gosh, cute. Look at this that I made. It's for sale. It's on Etsy and someone will buy it. It's not like that now. It's not like that now. And so it's just, I had to really flip the idea of where I wanted the people to find me, because it's fascinating that even when I pushed back, I had to go back there. And I don't want to go back there. I kept returning to the surface level conversations, the surface level posts, and I want to find the depth. I want to find the deep work, and I want to find the people that resonate with that. I want to find the people who are sitting here listening to this podcast. I want to find you, and I want to know that you exist in my space, and that you're here, and that you're listening, and that those are the people. You are those people. You are my person. You are the person who's willing to sit and listen to a 30-minute podcast versus the person who just wants to click across Instagram. And so that's flipped my idea, and I've had to seriously sit with that. It's like, how will the people find me if I speak my truth? Where will they find me if it's not the surface level Instagram anymore? And so I had to find the space to do this, to sit with this, because then the right women will land in the space, and I'll be having the conversations that I want to have, even if I'm just sitting in my van having a conversation with myself. So community isn't something you find, it's something that happens. In the exact moment someone decides to stop performing and say the thing that's actually true. So even if their voice is like, oh my God, I'm gonna do it. Like, even if no one responds straight away, they did it, because the reality is that there are people around you and women around you right now who want to have these conversations, but they're just waiting for the permission. They're just waiting for the permission. There are two women back in my home area where we were. Two women. That's it. Out of all of the women that I met over the way, I met women who I was having deep conversations with, but when the deep conversations turned into something that they couldn't cope with, they would just back off from the friendship. They'd be like, I don't think so. And they would be like, because my life is fine now. Oh my God, it wasn't fine. I was having these deep conversations, but now I can't have these conversations about how my life is not okay, because that's uncomfortable, and my life is fine. So let's not have those conversations anymore. Okay. That existed, to like, I can have these conversations, but only if my husband's not around. Also spicy, not ideal. Other conversations like, I'm fine, I'm not fine, has a vulnerability like breakthrough with you. This happens. By the way, this happens to me so many times. Vulnerability, becomes vulnerable, shares the vulnerable thing. You show up to that vulnerability. You meet the vulnerability, like, oh, okay, I'm meeting this vulnerability. And then they have a vulnerability hangover, and then they just can't cope with the conversation anymore ever again. It's like, but that's so weird, because I met her there at that level, and now I have to meet her back at surface level, but she was there. We had that conversation. I thought we were going there. Oh, nope, she has a vulnerability hangover. Exactly what happened with the women in the van. And so it's like, oh, okay. And then there's two women where we talk about how shit it can be, how challenging it can be, at the same time as, have you watched this Netflix? At the same time as, thank God we can have these conversations because I'm not having them with anybody else. Great. Two women I can do that with. Perfect. I also have deeper conversations with the odd couple of friends that I've had along the way. Fine. Let's keep it there. That's great. I'm happy with that level of friendship community. So that's it, really, because you really want like the women around you who are waiting for that permission. And then the shift is then not how do I find better people? It's where am I still performing instead of being known? And that's difficult. And it has to come naturally, right? And then, where am I keeping it light when something deeper needs to be said, actually? And where am I willing for someone else to open the door? I want someone else to meet my vulnerability and not have a hangover about it. So the woman that goes first in all of that, it changes the entire room. It changes the entire situation. So like when I was thinking about this and I was thinking about the friends in my vicinity, I was thinking, I have these deeper conversations. I met her with a deep conversation and it continued that way. And so perhaps she knows me more than anybody else. I would say in my lifetime, this woman knows me better, and she is willing to be vulnerable with me and I'm willing to be vulnerable with her. And then we were together with another friend who we both knew and we were both friends with. And then she saw the vulnerability that existed within our friendship and was like, fuck, I want some of that. And you're like, yes, please come in. Please come into our coven of vulnerability. Let's talk about it, you know? And then she shares her stories. And that's all it takes. That's genuinely all it takes. So let's just think about it again. The question isn't where is my community? It's where am I willing to create it? Where am I willing to be the first one to step out of the script? And even if that feels uncomfortable, and if it does feel uncomfortable, good, because that is where this starts. This is where you meet it. And I'm going to wonder now for you, I'm going to ponder for you now about how this links to the work of the pelvis. It works so deeply. It works so intrinsically, and it's how I've got to this point now where I'm able to radically see the shifts that happen in community, and am able to sit in a van and contemplate it at this level. The van is not an escape. That's what so many people say to me. Oh, is the van just an escape? No, the van is absolutely the opposite of that. The van is a way of finding everything, actually. I have so much to say on that, and I talk a lot about this with Nemestia. But in order to do that, I've had to go on a long ass journey. And what I really see is how I've worked with my rooted self and my pelvic needs. And whenever I need to understand something, it's always coming back to my rooted self and understanding myself and the essence of who I am. That comes from doing the understanding, unpicking the understanding of who I am by just being and witnessing and observing and coming back to the tools that repeatedly help me to return to the truth of who I am. So when I'm talking about this situation that happened to me, fucking triggering, because it triggers an abandonment wound. It triggers an abandonment wound, and it triggered abandonment in my child. And I had to hold all of that, plus the fact that the whole situation was very intense and had dysregulated my husband within it. So he was fucking fuming. Then he can see that he's being triggered by everything around it. Plus the fact I'm dealing with the shame hangover from my other child. Plus then the unpicking of why that they didn't get to say goodbye to their other friend. It was like a fucking mess. And I was able to hold it through the tools and the understanding of who I am, through the pelvis. It's always through the pelvis. It's always through my rooted needs. Because if you go through the journey that I've created, that is filled with the tools and the understanding and the unpicking and the sitting and the resonance of everything that you need to be able to find your way through this sort of challenge, so that you can truly sit with who you are, so you can truly acknowledge who you are and celebrate yourself in any given moment. And that's why I love that journey that I've created, because that journey is the journey that I've created for every woman that has come and sat with me in the cabin in the bottom of my garden. And I'm telling you that every single woman, I don't think there has been a single woman that hasn't sat there and spoken about their mother wounding or their sister wounding and how they're going to navigate that. So it's all part of that journey. I'm sending so much love, and I hope to find you off social media. Now I've placed my 9 grid up. Please come and join me on Substack. Come read some of my notes and interact with me. I want to find that community there and see you. And I'm willing to put myself into that community and write vulnerable things. And you also want to be vulnerable. So let's be vulnerable together. I'm sending so much love.